So after moves for players like Antony and Benjamin Sesko have collapsed before the transfer window is even up, there are now rumours circulating that Ten Hag may look to bring in 23-year-old Cody Gakpo from PSV. But before I go any further, if you need a place where you can keep up to date with the latest transfer news, find all the match stats you need from games across the globe, and watch highlights and stream live football matches, then you need to download the OneFootball app. I use the OneFootball app because it's completely free, and not only do they have stats and transfer news, but they also have videos to watch and articles to read, which is where I get a lot of my ideas for new videos. And as I said before, you can stream live football matches and watch highlights all on the app. Downloading the OneFootball app will help support the channel as well, so I'll leave it linked in the description below. So Gakpo has been linked with a number of different clubs, including Arsenal and Nottingham Forest, and knowing Manchester United, he probably won't be getting signed this transfer window anyway, but I thought it would make an interesting video to not just analyse Gakpo as a player, looking at where he'd fit into Ten Hag's Manchester United side, whilst also analysing the specific tactical role that I think Gakpo could be used in, whilst also comparing him to one of the all-time greats of the game. And you will see why if you keep watching the video till the end. So what type of player is Cody Gakpo and how good is he? Well, I'd describe Gakpo as a modern hybrid between a winger and an attacking midfielder, who does his best work when he's able to drop deep between the lines of the opposition system, receive the ball in central positions before turning, and driving at the back line. Because of this, I think he operates best when starting from a wide left position, and then floating into the half space in a similar way to how Eden Hazard would do at Chelsea. But the thing that distinguishes Gakpo from other attacking midfielders is his creative and finishing ability in the final third. He's an exceptional striker of the ball, able to use his close ball control, pace and agility to accelerate into shooting positions around the box before being able to then drive the ball low and hard across the keeper with either foot, or he can cut inside from the left and curl the ball with the inside of his right foot looking for the far corner. And when we break down his statistics, we can see how impressive he is. Last season in the Eredivisie, he scored 12 goals and picked up 13 assists in 27 appearances, a total of 25 goal involvements, which is nearly a goal involvement every game. He also recorded the third most key passes in the league with 3.3 per 90, whilst also sitting third in the Eredivisie for who scored's rating with a score of 7.79 on average, and he also recorded the 7th most dribbles of any player as well. Unfortunately, FBref doesn't have a report for players not in one of Europe's top 5 leagues, but I think from these stats alone we can see that Gakpo is an attacker who can progress the ball forward, create chances and score goals, a combination that none of United's current attackers all have in one package. When I watch him play, I can't help but feel he looks like the player Marcus Rashford should have become, an inside forward who can drift between the lines, drive forward using his tall frame and acceleration, and have the shooting ability of a striker but the creativity of an attacking midfielder. However, Marcus Rashford's game has severely deteriorated, with his finishing being superb on occasion but extremely inconsistent and wasteful most of the time. He seems to thrive when he's under pressure and not got much time to think, which is why he suits running through on goal in 1v1s, but when he has time on the ball in the middle third, he doesn't think quickly enough, slows down the game and then doesn't have the passing or vision to be a high quantity chance creator. And so with Rashford reportedly being in talks with PSG, I think allowing Rashford to leave for between 30 and 35 million would be perfect to allow Gakpo to take his place on that left side. Being a year and a half younger and having better current ability, and I think he's much greater potential than Rashford, as unlike the Englishman, Gakpo is a complete attacker. Now I know that PSG are reportedly offering around 60 million for Rashford, but I'm just saying 30 to 35 million as that's what I would probably sell him for, so if United can get 60 million I'd take that in a heartbeat. But how would Cody Gakpo fit into Ten Hag's side tactically? Well, as I said, Gakpo would probably suit playing from the left side and drifting infield, which would require Ten Hag to move away from using two natural wide attackers, holding their width in the attack. However, I think this could be compensated by instructing the left back to push further forward and allow Gakpo to move inside and create almost an advanced double pivot with Fernandes between the lines, with Sancho then holding his width on the right side and Ronaldo or whoever the striker is retaining a high position as a centre forward in the attack. This would mean that United's 4-2-3-1 would transition to a 3-2-4-1 in possession, with Diego Dalot retaining a deeper position than Malacia on the other side, and a double pivot in midfield creating a box shape in the centre of the pitch, with Gakpo and Fernandes ahead. Gakpo, like Fernandes, would be the creative hub of the attack, however he does offer a lot more in the transition than Fernandes, being a much quicker and more efficient ball carrier, which is why when United don't have the ball and they are sitting off in the middle or defensive third, I would have Bruno Fernandes dropping alongside the midfield double pivot to create a three-man midfield, with Garner or probably a new signing like Rabiot as the deepest midfielder, with Fred and Fernandes either side. This would allow both Sancho and Gakpo either side of the midfield to retain slightly higher positions, acting as outlets for United to play a vertical pass into and have them transition the attack quickly. Whilst both Sancho and Gakpo can provide this ball carrying ability, I think that Gakpo can do this a lot better from central positions, and so So while Sancho can be instructed to hold a wider position a bit more without the ball when United don't have possession and track his fullback's movement down the flanks, Gakpo can be given the freedom to float in field when the ball is in United's defensive third, so that when United do win the ball back, with one vertical pass he can receive the ball in space, turn and then drive the attack forward. One iconic player who was notorious for his ability to do this was Zinedine Zidane. Now Zidane is a fairly similar player to Gakpo, even though I do think Gakpo has more winger-like traits than Zidane, being a lot quicker and better at running in behind the back line, but like Gakpo, just obviously a few levels above, Zidane was a phenomenal ball carrier, having an elegance and grace that allowed him to float past players effortlessly in the centre of the pitch without even breaking into a sprint. He'd probably fall into the category of an Agante or a Roman playmaker, depending on the system he was being used in, and like potentially with Gakpo, a better description, more than a row I guess, would be to label him as a ball carrying midfielder. Players like Kevin De Bruyne and Yaya Toure are more recent top level examples of ball carrying midfielders. Kevin De Bruyne, like Zidane and Gakpo, is fantastic at being the ball progressor in a quick transition in attack, able to drive forward with the ball at pace when there is a turnover, evading opposition midfielders with his smooth ball control and acceleration. Yaya Toure would also do this, but much more through his sheer power, and both the Belgian and the Ivorian were also able to match their ball progressing abilities with world class output in the final third, with both being able to create and score goals around the box, making them complete midfielders in possession. Zidane wasn't as clinical as De Bruyne or Toure, but he was able to control the game in the centre of the pitch with his elegant body movements, manipulating the ball and the opposition's midfield before either retaining possession, finding a forward pass or just driving past them himself. And Gakpo has these qualities as well, not to the same level as those three, but he is just 23 years old. But what inspiration can Ten Hag take from Zidane in order to get the best out of Gakpo if signed for this Manchester United side? Well, under Marcelo Lippi for Juventus, Zidane was usually deployed behind the front two of Del Piero and even Christian Vieri or Filippo Inzaghi, but in front of a defensively strong midfield with Deschamps at the base and Conte and Edgar Davids either side. This created a diamond system where in possession Zidane would be the focal point of the attack, playing as the Agante at the top of the diamond. This was the side's main focal point for ball progression and had the athleticism and security of the three midfielders behind Zidane to enable him to be used almost in a free role further up the pitch. During the peak of his career in 1998, while still at Juventus in this system, Zidane was also used in a similar system under Aimé Jacquet during the 98 World Cup victory for France. Jacquet, like Marcelo Lippi, deployed a horizontally compact system, but it was more of a 4-3-2-1 Christmas tree system with Zidane and Djokaev playing between the lines in behind Govac, whilst in front of a physically defensively solid midfield three of Karembeu and Petit either side of Deschamps. And you could see that Zidane thrived in systems that gave him the defensive solidity behind him in central midfield. And Ten Hag could replicate this with his 4-2-3-1 by having Sancho hold his width on the right and Fernandes and Gakpo sit in between the lines behind Ronaldo. Now the midfield setup behind this front four is crucial, and I would push Malacia forward down the left, providing the same width that Sancho does on the right. Ten Hag is likely going to use a double pivot with a ball progressor and a more industrious central midfielder. Let's say, for example, either Garner, but likely Rabiot at this point, alongside either McTominay, but more likely Fred. Now, because Ten Hag would use a double pivot rather than a midfield diamond, I would instruct Diego Dalot to shift up and invert, moving into a right-sided defensive midfield position, with Fred taking up the same position on the left and Rabiot being the regista in the side. This would give Manchester United a pentagon shape in midfield with Gakpo and Fernandes as the two players ahead, which would give the Dutchman a similar level of freedom to what Zidane had, recreating the Karembeu, Deschamps and Petit midfield in shape, but obviously not in quality. With Sancho and Malacia advanced down the flanks, and Gakpo and Fernandes sitting in the half space, those two wide players in the three in front of the centre-backs are essentially going to be playing the roles of what is known in Football Manager as a carrilero, or also known as a shuttler. Edgar Davids played this role not just for Juventus in Marcelo Lippi's late 90s side, but also for Louis van Gaal's 94-95 Champions League winning Ajax side, where his 4-2-3-1 would become a 3-3-3-1 in possession, using Davids and Seedorf as those industrious central midfielders in the carrilero roles, moving out to defend the flanks when the opposition side looked to counter quickly, and exploit the narrow positions of the Ajax fullbacks, which was Frank de Boer and Michael Reiziger, and the high positions of the wingers Finidi George and Mark Overmars. And this is what Dalot and Fred would be asked to do as well in the 2-3-4-1 possession shape. So would Cody Gakpo be a good signing for Manchester United? Well, I would say without doubt yes. yes, especially if United were able to sell Rashford for the reported £60 million to PSG, which sounds like a massive overpayment, as he officially just has 1 year left on his contract, but effectively it's 2 because the club has the option to extend it for another year. I would be happy to allow Rashford to leave for say 35 million and then use that money to bring Gakpo in, but £60 million I'm biting your hand off. Gakpo brings a chance creating ability that Rashford has never really had, combined with the ball progressing ability and goal scoring threat that Rashford has completely lost over the past year and a half or so. If used in the right system, I think Gakpo and Fernandes can work incredibly well together, as an advanced double pivot in possession. Gakpo can be the player to drop off and look to link the defensive and midfield lines with the attack, using his ability to carry the ball forward at his feet, which in turn will allow Fernandes to retain a higher position, and do what he is better suited to do, which is essentially playing as a second striker, sitting between the lines and looking to create, but also breaking ahead of Ronaldo into goal scoring positions. I even think that as a long-term replacement for Ronaldo, Gakpo could potentially be used as a false 9, with Fernandes playing behind him, and an inside forward from the left, say Rashford if he stays, or Martial, as well as Sancho maybe from the right, making runs off of Gakpo's deeper movement when a centre-back gets dragged out of the back line. If the centre-back doesn't follow him and this space is not vacated for a penetrating run, then Gakpo should be free to float in behind the opposition's midfield and look to receive the ball and turn with no player following his movement deep. I may do a full tactical analysis of this system in the future, but as of now there's too many ifs and buts, and overall I wouldn't be able to go into the detail I would like in this video, so if you do want to see that video in the future, put a comment in the comment section below, and subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. I think a central front three of Gakpo and Fernandes in behind Ronaldo, with Jadon Sancho from the right, looks a lot more prolific and complete as an attack than with Rashford playing from the left side. So I think if United are able to do this deal, I would definitely look to do it, as it is a deal I approve of. Now, do I think this transfer gets done in this window? Obviously not, this is Manchester United we're talking about, but I could see it going down a similar route to the Bruno Fernandes deal, where it takes United about 6 months of talking about the transfer before they actually get it done. So thank you for watching. If you enjoyed that video, subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, give the video a like, and check out some of my other videos in the description below.